Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we will take a quiet journey into the heart of one of history's greatest empires, Rome, not through battles or conquests, but through gentle stories, fragments of daily life, and wonders that still echo across time. As you listen, imagine the soft glow of torches flickering against ancient stone, the murmur of voices in distant forums, and the hush of Roman roads stretching endlessly into the horizon. So, find a comfortable place. Let your thoughts drift, and together we'll explore 100 sleepy facts about the Roman Empire. Rome began as a small settlement along the Tiber River, no grander than a cluster of huts on 7 hills. Over time, it grew into the heart of an empire stretching across continents. To Romans, their city was not just a place, but a destiny, a promise that Rome would endure. Even as centuries passed, they called it Urbs Aeterna, the eternal city. Tonight, we can still walk its ruins and feel that resistance whispering through broken stone. Roman roads stretched like veins, binding the empire together, built in layers of stone and gravel. They were so durable that many survive today. Soldiers, merchants, and messages all moved along these paths, carrying life outward from Rome's center. To travel them was to be part of something larger than oneself. They remind us that even in silence, a road carries the echo of countless footsteps. At the heart of Rome, the forum buzzed with speeches, markets, and rituals. Senators debated beneath marble columns, while vendors sold figs and olives nearby. Temples smoked with offerings as gossip moved through the crowd. It was noisy, crowded, and alive, the center of Roman public life. Now the stones lie quiet, but if you close your eyes, you can still almost hear the hum. The Romans believed that law should outlive men. There are 12 tables, written in the early republic, became the foundation for centuries of justice. Contracts, property rights, and even family disputes found order under these rules. To the Romans, law was not just regulation, it was a way of keeping peace in a world that constantly shifted. Much of modern law still carries their faint signature. From distant hills, arches carried water into the city. These aqueducts marched for miles. Silent rivers raced on pillars. In Rome, fountains bubbled and baths filled, all because of their flow. Water was life, and the Romans captured it with stone. The steady sound of trickling water was a lullaby. The empire gave itself. Roman builders mastered concrete, a mixture of lime, volcanic ash, and stone that could harden even underwater. With it, they built harbors, domes, and vaults that have stood for 2,000 years. The secret lay in its chemistry, which allowed the material to grow stronger with time. Modern engineers still marvel at its endurance. In every surviving arch, Rome's ingenuity whispers across centuries. Beneath its stone tiers lay a maze of tunnels and cages, a hidden world of preparation. Though weathered, the arena still stands, its silence echoing with ancient cheers. To sit among its arches is to hear Rome's hunger for drama. Roman leaders understood that people craved both food and entertainment. Free grain and grand spectacles kept the masses content. The phrase bread and circuses became shorthand for public satisfaction. Gladiators, chariot races, and theater performances were not just diversions, but politics in disguise. Rome knew that happiness could be engineered one loaf and one show at a time. The Circus Maximus was Rome's racing track, vast enough to hold over 150 people. Chariots thundered around its course, cheered by crowds, divided into passionate teams of red, blue, green, and white. The noise of hooves and wheels shook the ground. Victory meant fame, riches, and devotion from fans. Even today, the empty field still seems to hum with speed. Gladiators were both slaves and celebrities, trained in special schools. They lived harsh lives, but could win glory in the arena. Crowds admired their courage, chanting names and waving favors. For some, the Romans believed the gods were everywhere in rivers, doorways, and hearths. Temples filled the city, each dedicated to a divine presence. Rituals and sacrifices kept harmony between people and deities. Festivals filled the streets with music, feasts, and dancing. In every prayer whispered, Rome sought the favor of its gods. Religion was not just belief, it was daily life. Even the smallest homes had shrines to the Lares and Penates, guardian spirits of family and food. Tiny statues watched over kitchens and hearths. Offerings of wine, bread, or fruit were given to them each day. These household gods reminded Romans that empire began with family. Even emperors bowed first at their own hearth. Temples were the bridges between heaven and earth. Columns lifted roofs toward the sky, while incense and chants filled the air. The Pantheon, with its great dome and open oculus welcomed light as if it were divine. Each temple carried not just stone, but the weight of devotion. To walk into one was to step into eternity. In the heart of Rome, the Vestal Virgins tended the sacred flame of Vesta. Their duty was lifelong, to keep the fire burning, symbol of Rome's survival. They lived in honor, with privileges rare for women of their time. But failure meant punishment as harsh as death. Their flame glowed for centuries, a living heartbeat of the empire. The Roman calendar was dotted with festivals. Saturnalia brought gifts and role reversals. Lupercalia honored fertility with wild rituals. On these days, work paused and laughter filled the streets. The empire, so often stern, allowed itself moments of joy. Festivals were Rome's way of breathing out, a reminder that even empires must celebrate. Roman children learned letters, numbers, and stories of heroes. Wealthy families hired tutors, often Greek slaves, to teach philosophy and rhetoric. Education was not only knowledge, but preparation for public life. Boys trained for speeches in the forum. Girls learned to manage households. Each lesson carried the weight of Rome's future. In ink, and wax tablets, the empire was written anew. As we pause here, notice how these first glimpses of Rome tell a story, not only of power, but of daily life and quiet detail, from the founding myths to the hum of Roman streets. The empire was alive in countless ways. Let's drift a little deeper now and see what the next set of stories will reveal. Rome gathered knowledge as it gathered provinces. Scrolls filled libraries, copied by careful hands. The wealthy opened private collections, while emperors built public ones for all. Within those walls, Greek, Latin, and foreign wisdom mingled. Though many were lost to fire and time, the idea endured that to collect words was to collect power. Doctors in Rome blended Greek learning with their own practice. Herbs, surgery, and even dental tools were used to heal. Army camps had medics, cities had physicians, and households kept remedies at hand. Not all cures were gentle, some were harsh, even dangerous. Yet, through trial and error, Roman medicine laid stones on the path to modern care. Meals in Rome ranged from simple bread and olives to banquets of exotic flavors. The poor lived on porridge and vegetables, while the rich feasted on oysters, peacock, and imported spices. Dining was not just eating, but performance, with couches, servants, and conversation. In every bite, Rome revealed its vast reach. To taste Roman food was to taste its empire. Clothing showed rank as much as fashion. Togas marked citizens, purple stripes marked senators, and armor marked soldiers. Wool was common. Linen and silk were prized imports. For Romans, dress was identity, stitched in fabric. Even now, the flowing lines of the toga remain a symbol of Rome's dignity. Public baths were the social heart of Rome. Citizens came not only to wash, but to meet, gossip, and relax. Pools of hot, warm, and cold water offered a rhythm of cleansing and renewal. Steam rose while voices mingled beneath vaulted ceilings. For a small coin, anyone could feel part of Rome's grand ritual. In the echo of splashing water, the empire seemed to breathe together. Even the most humble needs were addressed with surprising care. Public latrines lined with stone seats allowed dozens to sit side by side, chatting while they worked. Beneath them, the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest sewers, carried waste away. It was not glamorous, but it was essential. Cleanliness gave the city health, and engineering gave it dignity. In Rome, even sewers were monuments to order. Legions were the backbone of the empire, disciplined columns of men trained to move as one, their shields locked like walls, their formations shifting with precision. Soldiers built roads and forts as well as fought battles, carrying Rome's presence into distant lands. Each legionary's oath tied him not only to his commander, but to the state itself. The army was both hammer and spine, shaping Rome's reach. In their footsteps, empire marched forward. Wherever the legions paused, they built camps rose in strict squares, with ditches, walls, and streets laid in order. Tents or barracks stood row by row, a miniature Rome repeated across continents. Within the camp, life had rules, drills, rations, and duties. Outside, locals traded goods, drawn to the hum of soldiers' lives. These camps were seeds from which new towns often grew. Though the army is famed, the navy also carried Rome's might. Ships patrolled the Mediterranean, a sea the Romans proudly called Mare Nostrum, our sea. They hunted pirates. And kept trade flowing. Oared galleys sliced through waves, their sails billowing beneath the Sunday. Harbors filled with their presence, anchors biting into distant sands. The navy gave Rome not just land, but horizon. As Rome expanded, it gathered provinces like threads in a cloak. Each region had its governor, its taxes, and its duties, but also its place within the empire's vast protection. From Gaul to Egypt, Cities flourished under Roman roads and laws. Local customs mixed with Roman habits, creating new blends of life. The provinces were not conquered only, they were woven in. In this weaving, Rome became more than Italy. It became a world. Citizenship was the most precious gift Rome could offer. At first reserved for Italians, it slowly spread to allies, soldiers, and eventually to nearly all free men in the empire. With it came rights appeals in court, protection from cruel punishments, and the pride of belonging. To hold citizenship was to walk taller, knowing one was part of something vast. It was Rome's quiet promise of belonging. In citizenship, the empire spoke of unity. Taxes fueled the empire's endless hunger for roads, armies, and monuments. Farmers paid with grain, traders with coins, and conquered regions with tribute. Collectors sometimes abused their power, yet the system endured. Taxes were both burden and glue, tying distant lands to Rome's treasury. Every denarius carried the emperor's face, a reminder of the order behind the demand. In every coin, Rome's reach shimmered. Provinces were ruled by governors, whose power could shape lives for millions. Some ruled with fairness, building aqueducts and theaters. Others abused their station, drawing anger and revolt. Each governor was a reflection of Rome itself, whether wise or corrupt. Their decisions rippled through villages, markets, and cities. To live under Rome was to live under the shadow of men whose names you might never know, but whose choices carried weight. Every few years, Roman officials counted the people. Families lined up to give names, ages, and property, all written into records. The census determined taxes, military service, and representation. It was a ritual of order, a way of making the vast empire visible on parchment. From the humblest farmer to the richest senator, all were tallied. In counting its people, Rome reminded them they belonged to a whole. The Roman Empire built over 250 miles of roads, stretching like wings across its territories. These roads were paved with stone, layered for strength, and designed to last for centuries. Soldiers, merchants, and messengers traveled quickly along them, binding the empire together. Even today, traces of these roads remain, their stones smoothed by countless footsteps. In a way, they are echoes of ancient journeys, still leading onward. Through time, aqueducts carried fresh water into Roman cities, a marvel of engineering that feels almost magical. Arches lifted channels high above valleys, letting gravity guide the streams. In Rome itself, fountains splashed in the plazas, fed by water flowing from miles away. People bathed, cooked, and drank because of these structures. their lives made easier by unseen currents. Listening to that water might have been as soothing as rain on stone, a gentle sound in a bustling city. The baths were not only for washing, but for relaxing and meeting friends. Warm air hung over the pools, and steam curled upward into painted ceilings. Citizens moved from hot rooms to cold plunges, chatting all the while. In these spaces, Rome's rhythm slowed, and life felt calm and shared. Temples dotted every city, their columns rising like guardians of faith. Inside, incense burned before statues of gods, Jupiter, Juno, Venus, and Mars. People came with prayers, offerings of fruit or coins, hoping for protection. The silence of the inner chambers contrasted with the noise of the streets outside. To step inside was to feel time pause, as if the gods themselves were listening. The Pantheon, with its vast dome, remains one of the wonders of Roman architecture. Its oculus, a perfect circle at the top, opens to the sky, letting in light and rain. Standing beneath, it feels like standing beneath the heavens, a reminder of human ambition and divine mystery. The marble floors still shine from centuries of footsteps. Even now, visitors whisper inside, their voices softened by awe. While the Colosseum is the most famous amphitheater stood across the empire, from Gaul to North Africa, stone arenas echoed with the cheers of crowds. These spaces hosted games, performances, and rituals that bound communities together. Some now lie in ruins, half buried in grass and silence. Yet the curve of their walls still suggests the sound of long ago applause. Away from the cities, wealthy Romans built villas surrounded by fields and gardens. Courtyards filled with mosaics and fountains offered peace from urban noise. Farmers tended grapes and olives, their harvest feeding both family and market. At night, oil lamps flickered in cool stone halls. These country states showed another side of Rome, quiet, pastoral, and enduring. Floors and walls glittered with mosaics. Each step across them was a step across a story, carefully crafted to last. Even broken pieces found today still shine with color as if freshly laid. They remind us that art was not just for palaces, but for homes and baths, part of everyday life. Markets overflowed with goods. Merchants haggled in the noisy forums, their voices carrying over the din of carts and animals. For ordinary people, such luxuries were rare, but the sight of them hinted at a vast world. Rome's empire was not just land, it was connection. Romans measured their days with sundials and water clocks. In city squares, shadows stretched slowly across carved stone, marking the passing hours. At night, dripping water kept the rhythm when the sun was gone. Though simple by today's standards, these tools gave order to daily life. When to work, when to bathe, when to gather. It is gentle to imagine their quiet patience, time flowing drop by drop under a fading sky. Roman coins carried the faces of emperors, their profiles stamped into bronze, silver, or gold. They were more than money. They were small pieces of propaganda, spreading the ruler's image across the empire. In markets, hands passed them with murmurs of trade, the metal clinking softly. Farmers bought salt. Soldiers received pay, and children held them with curiosity. Today, these coins still glimmer, whispers of countless transactions long past. Throughout the year, Romans gathered for festivals in honor of their gods. Streets filled with music, torches, and laughter as processions moved toward temples. Families shared meals, neighbors danced, and priests offered sacrifices at the altars. These holidays broke the rhythm of ordinary labor and gave people moments of joy. Beneath the noise, a sense of unity spread Rome. Felt like one great household. Children of wealthy families studied with tutors, often Greek philosophers, who taught literature, rhetoric, and mathematics. Lessons took place in open courtyards, where students recited lines of poetry or solved problems on wax tablets. For poor families, education was simpler, learning a trade or following the rhythms of farm and market. Yet, across all classes, stories of Rome's heroes and gods shaped young minds. Knowledge flowed like a river, steady and nourishing. Legions built camps with remarkable precision, each laid out like a miniature city. Rows of tents, straight roads, and central headquarters gave order to the soldiers' lives. Fires glowed at night, casting shadows across shields and spears. The discipline of these camps reflected the discipline of Rome itself, organized, resilient, and enduring. Even in distant lands, Roman soldiers carried the empire's heartbeat with them. Roman doctors relied on herbs, minerals, and techniques borrowed from Greece. They set broken bones with splints, stitched wounds with thread, and used honey as an antiseptic. Temples to Asclepius, the god of healing, offered hope where medicine fell short. Families whispered prayers at bedsides while healers mixed remedies in clay bowls. Though limited by ancient knowledge, their efforts reflect a timeless human desire to ease pain, to protect life. In every home, small shrines honor the household gods, the lares and pennants. Oil lamps flickered before them, and simple offerings of bread or wine were made. These figures guarded kitchens, hearths, and families, invisible protectors in daily life. Even as grand temples rose across the empire, these intimate rituals grounded faith close to home. They remind us that devotion often begins in small, quiet gestures. By day, roads swarmed with carts and travelers, but at night, under the glow of torches or the silver of the moon, they grew quiet. Merchants rested at roadside inns, while distant sounds of owls and dogs echoed in the dark. Soldiers on night marches moved steadily, their armor glinting faintly. The roads of Rome were not only paths of power, but also rivers of silence and shadow beyond gladiatorial games. The wooden stage echoed with voices, while spectators laughed, sighed, or applauded. For a brief time, commoners and elites sat side by side, sharing the same story. The theater was a place where imagination, not empire, held sway. Wealthy Romans dined on couches, surrounded by platters of fruits, meats, and delicacies from across the empire. Musicians played softly, while servants poured wine into silver cups. Conversation drifted from politics to poetry, from gossip to philosophy. Yet beneath the luxury, these banquets were about connection, a weaving of bonds through shared food and laughter. The clatter of dishes and the glow of lamps made the night feel endless. At the center of Rome, a space alive with voices. Senators debated, merchants shouted prices, priests led processions, and citizens gathered news. Columns and temples rose around it, framing the bustle like a stage. To walk there was to feel the pulse of the empire itself, restless, powerful, and human. Even in ruins today, the Forum carries the memory of countless footsteps echoing in stone. And so, we come to the end of our quiet walk through Rome's past. From timeless temples to roads that still endure, from whispered prayers at household shrines to the grand spectacle of the Colosseum, the empire lives on in memory and in stone. May these stories stay with you like gentle echoes of history, carrying you softly into rest. Thank you for listening, and until next time, may your night be calm and your dreams be timeless.